Well, hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Kirschner, CEO and co-founder of InnoLead, and I'm really excited about today's LinkedIn Live conversation, particularly because it ties into some really interesting news in the AI and innovation management landscape that you may not already have heard. And obviously, Agentic AI is something that everyone is either talking about or trying to figure out or both. And so I'm hopeful that we get some good insights and some good definitions today. And also get a chance to really explore. I mean, innovation management is always an evolving field. It feels like it's especially evolving quickly at this moment. And before I bring on screen our two guest speakers for today, Brandon Klein from Collaboration.Ai and Jan Fischer from Inosabi, we always like to use comments on LinkedIn just to let us know where you are watching from today, if you're watching this live, and of course, to add any comments or questions or maybe heckle us as we go. So keep the comments coming. We'd love to see them as we do these LinkedIn Live broadcasts. Let me introduce you to Brandon Klein from Collaboration.Ai. Brandon, how are you today?
Good morning. Great. Thanks for having us.
Where are you webcasting from this morning?
Live from my cold basement in Minneapolis.
All right. And from a different part of the world, we've got Jan Fischer, the co-founder of Inosabi. Jan, where are you this evening, it looks like?
Warm office in Munich, so basically in the Inosabi office.
All right, I love it. Well, thank you for staying at the office a little bit late for this LinkedIn Live today. Maybe can we start with a little bit of the news about Inosabi and Collaboration.Ai and kind of this new arrangement between the two companies?
Of course.
Go for it, Jan.
Yeah. So and all of you, you're familiar with Inosabi, and Inosabi has been part of Kestel, and now we join forces with Collaboration.Ai, which for us unlocks a new technology, more so to say, and way more capabilities when it comes to being at the forefront of AI and being at the forefront of innovation. Bringing that together is quite interesting for us, and this is the next chapter of the company Inosabi.
Brendan, do you have a take on kind of how these two companies coming together is going to create some new possibilities for your customers and maybe also companies that are not yet your customers?
I do have a take, but do you want to check to see if I'm real or a robot first?
Do I want to check? Did someone ask that in the comments? I see we have people from Munich.
I'm looking at the comments. Us that live in the AI world, we have to validate the truth and trust if I'm real or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is there a good question that I could ask you to know if you're real and not a robot? Who is your co-founder at Collaboration.Ai?
Yeah, they're not that sophisticated yet. No, we've been working with Jan and team for a long time, us building the Agentic core, doing experiments and running with customers here in the States. And it's just like the perfect combination. So really proud to be partnering together.
All right. So Brandon, while you are on the screen here, give me your definition of agentic AI. In past LinkedIn Live conversations, I have complained that people have started describing any kind of chatbot or any kind of AI feature as an agent, which makes it confusing when people then start saying agentic AI. So how do you define it? What's the gold standard definition?
I promise you mine will not be the gold standard. Think of AI and the way most people use AI, like an intern or like my teenage children. They'll take your prompt or what you're saying, and it's just the brain thinking, and it spits back out kind of what you say with a little bit of intelligence. As you move into agentic AI, think of it like the whole person, not just the brain. A business leader like Jan that truly understands every element of innovation with the superpower of AI. That's agentic AI, and be able to really help people move things forward. Big difference in my mind.
To me, when I think about it, it is AI that, kind of like a person can engage with different systems and different processes, right? And doesn't just live in one piece of software, but is that part of your definition, or is that kind of just adjacent to your definition?
No, I mean, that's the definitely the difference of, call it like an intern versus a chief of staff. A chief of staff can go and work in any different part of an organization, pull the right information, stitch it together, and take action. Whereas a new intern or my teenager would be like, oh, well, I'll give you a really cool answer and not do anything. So yes, all systems, all integrated all the time.
So I would love to get to, we have a couple slides that you've prepared. And so I'd love to look at this slide about the future of innovation management. And you've kind of laid out 4 tentpole ideas here about where we're going. And so let's touch on each of them. And I'm not sure who wants to jump in first on number 1 here.
Maybe I can take the lead on this one. So if we think about innovation management platforms as of today, they are more or less the backbone for any kind of optimization idea, process improvement, and so on and so forth, touching each and every area within the organization, and then of course well orchestrated. So basically, it's the system of record for intake, workflow, gates, portfolio, execution later on. This is standard. And this is exactly the way how we measure right now the success of innovation management platforms. Number of ideas, amount of projects being conducted within half a year, within a year or quarter, and so on. And later on, maybe amount of concepts being voted, evaluated. But this is maybe not far enough. So if we now put an anti-AI agent layer across the entire innovation management platform, not talking about optimization for smaller bits and pieces like the voting or an evaluation, but really end to end. The question is, how can we in the future better leverage the investments we have into innovation and then driving later on better decision making? So we still have the data, the innovation management as the data layer, but now we are talking about the AI layer, which is always on, always assessing, always driving innovation. And it's rather the creation of an investment machine that later on generates output. And this is my take on the future when we combine AI, agentic AI, and innovation management platforms. Brandon, over to you to challenge my thoughts here, or maybe to add something.
Well, I don't want to get myself in trouble this early in the call. Let's let Scott lead it.
I was going to say, I do want you to get yourself in trouble. I mean, that's what makes it juicy. So Jan, it sounds like what you're describing, and, I'm curious, Brandon, if you agree, is like there's almost an internal venture capital fund that AI is directing at all levels, Jan. Is it just the seed investment and not the rollout, deployment, go to market investment? How do you think this is going to work?
So basically, innovation, you can become super creative. You will have so many amazing ideas, but the question is, where do you put your money on, right? And sometimes it's a tiny bucket, sometimes it's a big bucket. And I think with the leverage of AI, you will be able to really run an investment machine that later on makes sure that you invest as wisely as possible. You can throw hundreds or 200 of human beings on different innovation ideas and projects and concepts to try to bring enough flesh to the bone to have a good decision later on. But the question is, do you have the capacity? Most probably not. Can you use and benefit newer technologies like the Agentic AI to support you in this one and taking the right decision? This is exactly how you should do it. And then it could be everything, the small idea, the big idea, early in the process or late in the process. Basically, it's everywhere available.
Okay, this is a big organizational change that you are predicting. So Brandon, I mean, what are people going to have meetings about if it's not about capital allocation? Like, are we just now choosing like flavors of coffee for the office Nespresso machine? What do you think?
There was a viral article by another industry innovation tech leader, came out 2 days ago, got 72 million long form views in just a few hours. And the hypothesis is that if a new country with, say, 50 million people popped up overnight that was smarter and faster than every Nobel Prize winner in all of human history to assist you in whatever you're doing, how would you choose to spend your time? How would you use your human creativity to innovate and move things forward? Some people, it might be choosing the type of coffee. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're talking to colleagues over that coffee. But what is our position then as humans to help drive innovation for our relationships? The three of us, the 55 people watching, 23% of them I know already and are trying to help promote you, Scott, and this live feed already.
You'll have to put a link. I'm not sure I read the long form article that you're talking about, but if you share a link in either in the comments stream or in the private chat, we'll put that.
I'll put it on the LinkedIn Live for sure.
All right, cool. So, I mean, this is interesting because it sounds like what you're getting to, Jan, is like something that I think a lot of people in companies dream of, right? Which is more data-driven capital allocation approaches, as opposed to, I'm the CEO's favorite and you're not. And so it's very hard for you to get funding for your idea. So I definitely see the upside of it, but I want to underscore, I mean, that like this would be a pretty big change in most companies to say, let the AI make some capital allocation decision or make all the capital allocation decisions on new concepts.
It will definitely help the individual, but still, and I think this is then changing as well the role of the innovation manager across the organization. The innovation manager is maybe not the one later on telling you what kind of idea or concept to realize, but he will be the relationship building person between the CEO, the CFO, maybe the engineers, to make sure that really some new ideas and concepts get traction and being realized. So still, you can have a decision on what should be done, but then it's different human beings, different departments that have to work together. And I think the innovation manager then is key within an organization, being in the spider web in the middle, and then orchestrating different people, different forces, building the relationships and making sure that innovations actually happen. And this is then aside from the innovation management platforms and processes and decision-making. It's the relationship layer in that case. And this is the key task for the innovation manager.
Yeah, kind of being that emissary, that ambassador, working with lots of different parts of the company to make sure that, I guess, everybody is aligned, right? Everybody is bought into the concept or bought into the way it's moving towards the market.
Absolutely, yeah.
Should we move on to number 2, this idea of a composable innovation ecosystem? And some of this terminology I feel like can't hurt to explain what you mean by agent runtime. Brandon, do you want to start with this one?
Oh man. So if let's say the three of us are innovators, and we exist in this wider ecosystem. In the case of this, maybe 100 people watching this, maybe 1,000 over the course of time. That represents an innovation ecosystem of people interested in moving towards this idea of an agent runtime. And so as we are able to, let me rephrase that. It's always been a hypothesis that we can engineer innovation ecosystems. The reality is it's been blocked by humans and by legacy software that has to go step by step or human-made automations. Now, in our case for our software, and in the future, I'm sure for all software, agents will be able to accelerate what humans would normally be able to do, to be able to cross-reference every part of the ecosystem to optimize it. And right now we're living in not a composable, but siloed ecosystems within organizations with an innovation management arm doing workflows across it to try to improve the ROI and grow companies. That's going to fundamentally flip on its head and become a composable innovation ecosystem in the very short term. And I think we're already doing it in some places right now.
Can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of that to organizations? And Jan, feel free to jump in and offer some additional commentary if you want.
Sure.
Should we practice it real time, Scott? No, I'm just kidding. Let's not. That'd get me in trouble. The ideas that creative innovators, innovation engineers have within organization or the bosses, that idea, the testing idea, the scanning of what's possible to be able to do that in seconds or minutes instead of months or years, then be able to test them and focus on what's going to make a difference and grow your company, and then act on them immediately. If you can collapse that entire runtime, it fundamentally shifts how you operate as a business and how you can perform with your really smart existing employee base to win in the market. And the companies that figure that out first are already winning.
I think I would build on that as well. If you think about big and large enterprises right now, and keeping what we already said in mind, everyone would expect there's one platform, one infrastructure that needs to be the same everywhere. But this is not the case, because you run innovation or idea management in Europe differently compared to South America, North America, and Asia. So basically, with a modular platform, you should be able to do not force people into a monolith, but rather give everyone the right platform, right configured, slightly adapted platform that perfectly fits his or her needs. Then once everyone has access to the same type of platform, then you have access to the same data everywhere globally. The agent then sit on top of that. And here again, it's a similar approach. You need to be quite modular with the agents, because you will learn something, you would like to optimize and adapt the agents, and you cannot rip your system apart all the time. So everything has to be super modular, then built in separate, smaller installments that you can constantly update the smaller bits and pieces to ensure that you're constantly improving your own machine system, so to say. On the process level, we are used to that as innovation managers, of course. On the platform level, this is state of the art. And on the AI level, you need to do the same. Otherwise, you're stuck in your system. So it needs to be perceived as a living, vibrant system that changes day in, day out. And then we're exactly where we see the future for number 2.
I want to bring in this great comment from Robert, who says there's a super high tolerance for VUCA and BANI workplace environments. VUCA, of course, is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I had to look up BANI, which is brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. So if humans,
that's how people describe me, Scott. Just for the reference.
Say that again.
That's how people describe me, BANI.
Brittle, anxious, incomprehensible. So Robert says, if humans decline to simplify their own environment on their terms, maybe AI has to do it on its terms. So that's kind of an interesting concept, right? We have a hard time designing simple systems and organizations.
So when you move into working with agents all the time, let's just use your folder structure on your laptop. Most people, it's a total mess. Jan's actually is really amazingly organized. I'm quite proud of his laptop. But I talk to my agent now that skill is to keep me organized in my file structure on my laptop. The simplest thing that makes me less banny, so that I can find everything and my agents can find everything to make me effective in almost real time. It's that simple of a benefit of agents to support you.
All right, let's get to this question from Kevin, which is, how do you see the future of innovation management intersecting with transformation management? Should innovation and transformation be managed separately, or is it all the same now? And I guess I would put, Kevin, feel free to tell me if you disagree. I feel like innovation often can be simplified to like, let's build some new stuff. Let's launch new offerings and services. Maybe to some extent, let's improve internal processes. Whereas transformation often is these days about digital transformation and making the organization a little more technologically nimble and capable. So do either of you guys want to take a crack at that? Is it all the same?
I'd say that Kevin definitely has a point. If I look back that past 10, 15 years, I see that quite often transformation teams use innovation management platforms to change the culture inside of an organization. And then, of course, you would like to change something, you'd like to optimize something. If it's a wheel or whether it's a culture, basically use the same tools, use the same methods. It's just a different content what you're going to change. That would be my take. So it's pretty close already. So Kevin is right, I guess.
I'm completely allergic to transformation. It's so overhyped typically. That's a great, that is a great comment. I do think it's interesting, like, when we talk about AI's application to innovation, transformation, maybe they're both the same things. Who is doing the application and deployment is an interesting question, right? Like, I think we're seeing innovation teams bringing in new kinds of AI tools, right? We're seeing technology teams and the CIO to some extent bring in new stuff. Although I would say often they bring in Microsoft Copilot or Chat GPT and then they stop and they're like, that's the tool set. So I guess I'm just curious what you two are seeing in terms of like, who are the people who are in charge as we make this pretty like big transformation into the world of AI tools and agentic AI?
No one is in charge yet, are they? Aren't we still too new in this new agentic world?
I probably agree with that. I mean, some companies have chief AI officers, but I'm not sure even they are in charge.
No, they usually spin up a governance council and slow AI down and just piss off the innovators. And the innovators find another way to do it. And some companies embrace those innovators, and the ones that don't, I don't think are going to last very long.
I agree, and I think it's basically it's everyone who wants to bring in AI tools at least play around with it and see how it optimizes your own workday. So your own 8 hours on the desk, how you can become more efficient, maybe less work 7 hours, have an output of 10 hours. Everyone is striving towards that. The question is, are you allowed to? Most probably not in a big corporation. Then if there's a department dedicated to it, as Brandon said, they are right now busy in defining the boundaries to make sure there is a safe space. So right now, everyone wants it, I guess, and everyone tries and plays around with it as long as they're allowed to. But the playground is not yet defined. So this is exactly where we are right now.
Let's tackle idea number 3 that's on this slide here. Ecosystem orchestration converts networks into outcomes.
I didn't realize how fancy these words were on our screen here.
Sounds very sophisticated.
Yeah. Jan, should we give different answers to this one?
Sure. So ecosystems. I think when we talk about innovation management right now, and we exclude for now that we're talking about a campaign or an individual project, we either focus inside of the organization, ideas, colleagues, and so on, employees, blue-collar workers, or we talk to suppliers, startups, universities. And usually it's somewhat separated. Of course, managed maybe by the same innovation department, but it's a different program, different budget, different way of innovating. Usually it's never combined. And I think in the future, it will be super blurry where information is coming from and where information is being segregated, combined, analyzed, and so on. And usually, I think in the future, you don't care where a good idea, good information comes from. It will come from the outside world as well as from the inside world. It will be presented by agents in one coherent story. And maybe you analyze 10,000 external startups overnight. Maybe you measure them against internal programs, internal VCs, projects, ideas, and so on. And this is exactly the new world, that you do not see the boundary of an organization anymore. So it's maybe open innovation 2.0.
Yeah, I love that idea. So not just building the networks, but actually, getting some tangible outcomes from them. I do feel like a lot of open innovation initiatives, and feel free to disagree, a lot of them last 2, 3, 4 years, and because there aren't enough outcomes that people can quantify and share case studies about, they get shut down, right?
I think there are several good examples for open innovation programs that run for a long time and that are pretty successful. But it already starts with the definition of open innovation. Henry Chesbrough, the graphic with a funnel, and there was the line. That was the outside of the organization. There was inside of the organization. I think in the future we do not have the line anymore. It's you will innovate within your innovation ecosystem entirely, fluently, more or less, without boundaries. And maybe your question, your challenge goes out to a mixed audience of externals and internals. The governance, the organization of that at scale is right now without AI not doable. just think about you run a campaign with suppliers or with your B2B clients. You need to define the messaging, moderation, frame conditions. You need to invite them, build the community, and so on. All of that is done by hand, manually, not doable at scale. In the future, with a good AI agentic layer at scale, not having 10 open innovation campaigns per year, but maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000 in parallel, incremental ones. This is exactly the thing which triggers and sparks interest, I think.
Yeah, no, I love thinking about that level of scale and volume for open innovation campaigns. Let's
Can we
touch
go
on
super personal there, Scott?
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
Can we go super personable with what Jan and you have just been talking about?
Yeah.
So Kevin Darbelnet, sorry if I mispronounced his name, is the guy who asked that question that you just asked us. And so I like to practice what we preach. And what Jan's example was, maybe think of the beauty of converting networks into outcomes, which is essentially like we did an open innovation challenge for building new helmets for pilots. And one of the winners to help make it was Trek Bikes. No one in their wildest dreams would think Trek Bikes has anything to do with pilot helmets, but they had developed sophisticated materials significantly lighter that when partnered up with other organizations made all the difference. We simply used, and that was a couple of years ago, so it was just AI, not full agents, to look across those networks to manually then introduce those people that open innovation would have never achieved, which is why Jan and I work so well together. Fast forward that to today, Kevin Darbelnet. Also on the call today, Kevin, are Nicholas Egbali and Iris H., who from our records are looking for exactly the solutions that you can offer. So I'll just put that out there into the universe. If Nicholas or Iris are willing to talk to you, you could make a big difference in their day-to-day work right now.
I love that you're doing like data mining among the attendees of this LinkedIn Live.
We gotta practice what we preach, right? Like let's help each other. You know.
All right, yeah. So let's touch on number 4, governed autonomy for high trust regulated environments. Government is obviously a super regulated environment, the pharma industry, financial services. So explain a little bit about what you mean. Brendan, do you want to start this and then hand it over to Jan?
Sure. My innovation background comes from 10 years in healthcare and 10 years in financial services and large strategic consulting companies. So I've had every governance, high trust, regulated book thrown at me as an innovator. And so that's why I'm so excited to be able to work with our European friends that have the core infrastructure and some of our government work here in America where we can do it all together. The high trust, the regulated environments, we can still help the innovator in immeasurable ways.
Jan, governed autonomy.
Yeah.
Give that a little more nuance for us.
So right now, everyone is used to innovation management platforms with rights, processes, access control, and so on and so forth. And we will keep that for sure, but we need to apply that as well to the AI layer. An unregulated wide AI layer will not work in big corporations. And this is exactly the key differentiator. Of course, you can use any kind of AI tool and throw that on your innovation data within your innovation processes. But now, just assume you're working in a highly regulated environment. It's key to enable you to keep the control over the AI and over the outcome and the way how the outcome is being built. And this is then exactly the value proposition that later on comes from companies like Inosabi and Collaboration.Ai. It's not just the tools, the technology, the fancy features. It's making that enterprise grade ready. And then, of course, it's easier to go from a super complicated environment, governmental, defense, towards maybe defense, and then healthcare, insurance, banks, and so on. But basically, this is exactly where value is being created by the two companies here.
All right, I love it. I want to, I'm going to bring the slides down in a second, but I did just want to share your contact info, Jan and Brandon. So folks, I definitely recommend following Jan and Brandon here on LinkedIn so that you can keep tabs on what they're writing, what's new with the company. And let me, there's so many good comments that I want to get to here and bring them on the screen. There's a very good conversation going on in the comments here. Hugh says, to me, AI is a force multiplier for innovation, doing the right things well, but also appears to be a threat that I'm very unsure about. Obviously, there's a lot of anxiety about where this all goes, and I think Hugh is kind of getting to that. So, Brandon, Jan, what would you say about kind of this idea of AI as a force multiplier that potentially could turn into a threat, maybe to individuals? Hugh, let us know what you're thinking specifically.
Go ahead, Jan.
So force multiplier, I think this is given. No one here in this chat needs to explain that, and I think this is something what we all take for granted. And exactly the governance layer is that what is required. You have to make sure AI works in your interest and you understand how agents work together, where they get data from, and how they analyze data. I think once this is proven and fully understood and maybe even signed off by the innovation management teams, then you can trust the outcome of AI in terms of it's doing the right things for you and analyzes based on your own criteria and KPIs. But without doing that, and just going wild, exactly, we would have the threat that it's not being regulated and maybe not being managed, and then the outcome is not the pleasant outcome we would like to see.
I wonder a little bit, I mean, this is kind of in the thought experiment category, but, when we talk about agentic AI doing the work of innovation and potentially doing funding and capital allocation for these projects, I start to think of in some ways like a closed loop system where if you imagine, there's a startup here in the Boston area that's raised $1 jillion to do laboratory experiments and drug development, right, with a lot of AI and automation. And so if that succeeds and you basically have kind of a lab in a box that you can say, hey, here's a list of diseases that have no treatments today, rock on and see what you come up with, it will disrupt a lot of human jobs, maybe except for then you have to run the clinical trial and recruit people to test these new drugs. But I'm curious about your thoughts about, okay, at some point, do you have these closed loop experimentation funding development systems? And if so, like, what is the human role in them or around them?
I find it very difficult to pontificate on biopharmaceutical stuff that I think you're referring to there that AI will be very good at. But if I take it all the way back to Hugh's question and your question is, what if you as the person are approaching that question wrong and you're not asking the right question right now of us, and Hugh isn't asking the right question of us? And what I mean by that is, did you test it with your AI counterpart first so that it would challenge you to ask a more detailed question? It would challenge it, a question for that the three of us could be more valuable in answering. And so is every person using that intelligence at their disposal every second of every day before they come into a meeting? What can they do before the meeting? How can they ask better questions? I data mine the people participating in this event, so I keep switching it back to more personal answers based on what the profiling has revealed. So how do we all just build that into our normal cadence of work? And then we won't worry so much about these future hypotheticals of mysterious chemicals in labs being tested on us. We'll have simulated all this under human control by asking the right questions using AI intelligence along the way. It shifts the conversation and it puts humans completely in charge.
Building on that, we see a tremendous increase of productivity across organizations. The big question now is, does that lead to layoffs or does that lead to more output? And I think 100 years ago, we had the steam engines. 6 years ago, we started with maybe computers and data, the work with data. There's a nice German word, but I can't literally translate it right now into English. So we had several times where we had so much more capabilities and possibilities that we increased the output a lot. Still, it transformed in some way the way how we work and how we work in organizations. And I think AI will do the same. from my point of view, it will not necessarily lead to layoffs. It will just lead most probably to a higher output and a different way of how people are working.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to bring in doom and gloom to the conversation. I mean, one of the folks that I often talk to about AI is the head of Amazon's robotics group, all the warehouse robots. And he points out something similar to the point you just made, Jan, which is like every technology revolution has grown wealth, improved productivity, made people more well off. There are some maybe difficult job disruptions in the process. I mean, I think there's a question now about everybody who went and learned software development, over the last 10 years. Are those skills as valuable in 2026 and 2027 as they would have been 10 years ago? Maybe not. Maybe those jobs are going to be impacted. But I do think it's important to look at AI as, yet another wave of technology, that may play out similarly to all of these previous waves of technology we've seen, the internet, personal computing, mobile phones. Brendan, do you have a take, and maybe what keeps you kind of optimistic about where we're going?
I'll use an expert take. Is a very, well, I don't know how popular it is, but the book called The Fourth Turning. We're just in another turning, another cycle that happens 4 times across a generation or 100 years. And so this is very common. And that's why I love having AI at my side, because it shows where we are in this cycle. And so what you and Jan said is absolutely true. And it's how each of you individually, Scott and Jan, the people watching, want to take it on. Carol Dweck made it famous of going from closed to growth mindset. We say now in the AI age, you have to have a reset mindset, because those software engineers, if they have a growth or reset mindset, are the most powerful users of AI right now, because they understand the structure of how it works. But a lot of them have a closed mindset and they're losing their jobs. And is that their fault? Or is it just another turning of innovation as we know it? And we lost Hugh. He was just saying the conversation just got interesting. So let's keep it interesting.
All right. Well, I wanted to bring up this great comment from Stephanie. Garbage in, garbage out. Humans are still prompting. Humans still need to ask the right questions. Humans still need to review the outputs, see if more questions need to be asked. Humans still need to be part of the process. And like, I do think Stephanie's getting at something important, right? Which is like the moment we do give up oversight, supervision, governance, it seems like maybe you run into some problems, with quality or with AI not understanding like real human psychology. I mean, other kinds of maybe guardrail issues too. But I'm curious if either of you want to respond to this comment about humans always needing to be part of the process.
Partly, I guess so, yes. But the question is, and this just came to my mind while you were phrasing your question here, we have best practices and standard methods in innovation and creativity, techniques, and so on. I guess we will have best practices for agents as well that we can largely apply for certain use cases, and there we can trust the outcome. So for sure, it's garbage in, garbage out, but we are not there yet where we standardize and define agents that carry out innovation tasks. So could be maybe an interesting topic for the future to build a catalog of best practice AI agents that support your innovation processes.
Yeah, I love that idea. Scrolling back just because there are so many good comments here, including one about definitions, which are always really important. Let's see. Going back.
I'll comment garbage in, garbage out while you find the next quote there.
Yeah.
So in our company, I'm the most guilty of garbage in and garbage out and incorrectly mentioning statistics or authors or whatever it is. And so there's an agent that watches all of my work and asks me what I'm actually trying to get at. So I don't do garbage in and I'm not allowed to do garbage out. So that's a skill that my team have developed for me to make me a more successful person. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in real-time live talking yet, but I'm sure we'll get there soon.
All right, this is the comment I was looking for, just kind of talking about definitions around transformation, innovation. And Viola says most organizations still suffer from the ambiguity around what each of these means. The key is first to build a common language and common framework and align definition across on what innovation means for the organization and the related case for change. I just think this is such a good, like, evergreen insight, which is, as long as there are humans in organizations, it's generally a problem if people are walking around with different definitions of what we're trying to do, what we're focused on in our heads, right? Because that's not real alignment. You often wind up going off in different directions. But any thoughts from either of you on this kind of important note to hit?
I mean, we have the innovation ISO, so we are going a step towards standardization. But then, of course, it depends on how the different definitions are being lived and practiced inside of organizations. And I think this is, we will never be able right now to have a clear definition across the globe, just starting with what's an idea, what's an innovation. I have my own definition. I think that if we would ask maybe the majority of the innovation managers, 60% would agree, maybe 50%. And then there's a huge variety of people that would put the boundary between innovation and idea closer towards the idea, closer towards the innovation. So I think it's always tricky to come up with the secret source of truth here. And the common understanding varies a lot between the different organizations. But of course, we are going closer and closer here, but with baby steps.
I'd love it if you're watching us live, or even if you're watching the replay, if you have a prediction about where agentic AI is going to take the practice of innovation. There was some talk in the comments earlier about just distributed innovation. And, I wonder what you think about the potential of your tools and other tools to really like support the idea that lots of people in the company who have a job that may not be 50% or certainly 100% focused on innovation and creating new things may now be able to play a bigger role in that process, in ideating and prototyping and testing new things, in a way that they couldn't, call it 5 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, AI will democratize innovation activities. Just imagine the blue collar worker who wants to change something that holds a gear in place, maybe, and he can simply go use the leverage of AI and ask what kind of additional or different materials could we potentially use and have less defects. It's not that he's the engineer later on deciding the right material, but at least he can narrow it down to a short list of 3 composite materials, for instance, and then go to the engineer. So, and then of course he gets the sanity check that his idea or thought is not stupid and it's a brilliant idea. And with that additional support, I think maybe he's more encouraged, more motivated, speaking up and coming up with his own idea. And there are a million more use cases on that.
Yeah, I love that. Brandon, do you have thoughts on kind of distributed innovation, which, like I would say in the past, distributed innovation sometimes is kind of a fig leaf for let's get rid of the central innovation team and make it everybody's job. And, we're going to save some money and probably not innovate at the same rate as you might want.
Yep. One of our viewers today used to be a financial analyst at a large firm, let's say, not to get him in trouble. And your job is in Excel and management and taxes and analysis and strategy. And he signed up for a Claude Pro Max account and was able to do all the spreadsheet and analysis exponentially better. And that was not culturally acceptable within a large organization, even though he could outperform 100 of the best analysts in his young in freshman class. So he switched over to a hedge fund and makes, like 10 times as much money now. So all of us out there that have this innovation power to do it, go do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the same. There's a comment in the thread.
I guess he's out there publicly, so there you go.
Yeah, well, friends of mine think my Claude Pro Max subscription is insane. It's not cheap, but I'd cancel every other subscription first with how it's changed my day to day. I mean, some of the conversation today makes me feel like, okay, we need to do a next LinkedIn Live about personal productivity habits and practices, and kind of how AI is impacting those. Like Brandon, you suggested that it's a big part of how you work now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this part, but I assume Michael pissed off a lot of his colleagues, right? And so the innovator out there that is embracing these new things, kind of like in the legacy world, the innovator that got picked by the CEO Open Idea Challenge that got money to build out their thing, like that's been democratized. And so how do we empower our team members to go full speed within the terms of art? I can't remember who came up with the idea, the earlier comment, the terms of art or the culture that we work with in an organization to begin that shift. Otherwise, it's going to get killed. Like a lot of innovation has been killed in Europe, I think, especially because of the freedom we have in America because of different GDPR rules. Now, I'm not going to say one is right or one is wrong, but how do we empower our own team members with what's available out there within the security constraints? Because nobody wants people's private information out there in order to innovate to make all of our lives better.
I love that. I feel like there are so many great comments here. Kevin makes another one about distributed innovation, fostering and engaging intrapreneurs. The best ideas often come from the most unexpected places, and in large organizations, that's often the folks closest to the customer and the work being done. It kind of makes me want to mention that our next LinkedIn Live that we're doing later in February is with the author of a new book called Inside Job, which is all about intrapreneurship and tools for intrapreneurs. This fellow, Ed Essie, who has been running the Microsoft Garage initiative for quite a few years now. So if you follow InnoLead here on LinkedIn, you'll find out about that upcoming LinkedIn Live, which is our next one here.
Can I make a plug for that too, Scott, of something people can do right now in their companies?
Yeah.
Ask your boss to turn on a Slackbot agent or a Teams agent to search through chats to find the entrepreneur who is getting blocked by others within chat from moving an idea or an improvement forward. You turn on an agent, both Slack and Teams support it, and we do this in our company, and I call up that person and be like, hey, that was really cool what you're talking about. Why was this getting stopped? How can we help make it possible to make a difference? And any company can do this right now if you ask.
I love that idea. I love that. One more just reminder to follow Brandon, follow Jan here on LinkedIn so that you can see what they are up to, what Collaboration.Ai and InnoSabi are doing. This is a really fantastic conversation today, both because of you two and then because of all the people who are such active participants. So really appreciate everybody who was here viewing it live. Also appreciate those of you viewing it on the replay. Definitely love to see you at our next LinkedIn Live with Ed Essie later this month. But Jan, Brandon, thanks so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.